Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. Hey, Kate.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hello. So today we're actually going to do a little bit of a special episode. Periodically, we do interviews with students and with other people in kind of the creative community. Eventually, we'll be bringing on business owners to see what it's like from their side. I have some cool people lined up. But for now, we're going to turn it really in-house, get a little meta with it, and we're going to talk to Kate, our head coach, and actually really our marketing manager now. So Kate, welcome back to the podcast.
I'm in the hot seat now. I don't like it.
Yeah, things, and I'm going to get really tough on you. So
I'm ready.
we're here to be raked over the coals. So Kate, can you tell us, and I know that you're very active in our Facebook group and you are our head coach, and a lot of people have worked with you and have gotten to experience your brilliance in that way. But can you tell us just a little bit about your background and how you got into copywriting and why you stick with it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'll be good for people to know that who's this random woman giving me feedback on my copy. I know some of you guys have heard the story, but so back in, I think it was 2009-ish, maybe 2010. That's when I first met you, Nicki, as you know. We were working at a company owned by TripAdvisor, and we're starting up a new brand, a new business. And I was part of the editorial team at the time, and there's, we need writers. You're pulling people from editorial, and I was lucky enough to kind of be pulled onto that project. And I remember having this moment of going home one day and being like, I like this. Like, this is exciting. This is not editorial writing. This is not, I majored in college in creative writing. And so this had more of a creative feel to it. There was more room to explore ideas. And I remember going in the next day and talking to the editor-in-chief at the time and saying, hey, is there any way I can, do they need more of me? Can I move over there more on a full-time basis? And you were kind enough to kind of take me on. And I always joke that I feel like I was the beta test for the Comprehensive Copywriting Academy, because I remember we had our one-on-ones that were weekly, and we would go into a room and you'd kind of be like, okay, today we're going to talk about banner ads. And here's everything you need to know about banner ads. And it was, a crash course in everything I needed to know, features versus benefits. I had zero background in marketing. So I was very lucky, I feel like, to have been in the right place at the right time. And looking back, I feel very much like, wow, like I was young, and to have had that foresight, or, to really think about and say, this is something I want to do, and not just kind of stay in the editorial team, which was, don't get me wrong, it was a great team. I was thrilled to have a writing job at all, especially, very close to having gotten out of college. So I pat myself on the back sometimes to say, well done, Kate, for being in tune with what was going on and wanting to hop on board.
Well, and to be clear, I didn't do you any favors by stealing you. I did myself favors, because it was very clear from the beginning that you were interested in learning, and you were open to learning, and you were open to refining your craft. And so right away I was like, this was a good steal. If she's interested, I'm going to steal her away permanently from the editorial team.
Yeah. And I think, the interest in learning, I think that's what's, kept me interested in copywriting for so long. Since then I, left and went to higher education, worked at a college for a couple of years, and then moved from Boston to Seattle and got a job at an agency. And so there was always something new, and there's always something different to learn. And I loved that about copywriting. And I remember one of the first things you said to me early on was, try your hand at freelancing, try it out. And, it'll give you, especially when, I was working at one company and then one higher institute, it's very hard to have, different clients, different experiences when you're working in one environment. And so I think that's where your advice came from, of like, get some experience, broaden your experience. And then you also made the point too, try your hand at full-time freelance sometime, just as an experience to understand what that's like to not, be on staff and work as a freelancer full-time. And that actually, I remember telling myself, so after Seattle, due to my husband's job, we eventually kind of made our way to Germany. And it was that moment of like, okay, like, I remember Nicki telling me this at one point in my life, like this is now happening, not necessarily by choice, but
well, you fell in love and then you were forced into full-time freelance.
yeah, exactly. Could be worse. It could be worse. But, I had started freelancing early on in my career, which I think was really helpful to getting those different experiences and learning about different companies. One early on, I always joke that it's lost to the internet, thank God, but it was a piece about wood chips and different, wood burning stoves and pellets. And I was like, ooh, this is interesting. Do I need a wood stove now? Do I need a pellet stove?
Isn't that fun when you end up selling yourself? You're like,
oh, all the time. Yeah. I think someone in the course actually mentioned that the other day, that it's like, how do I not buy everything I'm writing about? Because you end up, you're doing your job well. You're like, oh yeah, I need all of these things that I didn't need before.
That's so cool. Yeah. So obviously, and you have done it all, right? You have been full-time, you have been, or I should say on staff, you have been a contractor, you have been freelance, you've been in agencies, you've been at in-house companies. And then, as you were saying, you made a big shift and moved to Germany for 4 years, and which is just a big life shift in general, but then also a really big career shift. And I think if you can offer some insight as to what it's like to go from a full-time job to a full-time freelance career, like what does that feel like? And what were some of the concerns that came up, or some of the things you were looking forward to?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest concerns, and I think this is everyone kind of feels this at some point or another, which is the financial aspect of like, can I make a go from having a consistent, whether it's biweekly, monthly, however they pay you paycheck, to, oh my God, I'm on my own. When's my next paycheck coming? I think the major thing that helped me was freelancing kind of all along throughout my career. And then when I knew we were moving, which I think we found out in like May of 2015 and moved by September. So I don't know the math on that, but a few months, it was some time. And so at that point it was like, okay, I have some freelance work. Let me now tell everyone I've previously worked with, everyone, that I'm currently working with, like what's happening, that I am going to go full-time freelance and start really ramping up that freelance work even more than I was. So there was a good period of time. Oh, and our wedding was in the middle of this too, which no big deal. So I was, planning a wedding, which, we did it back where our families are. So it was actually a destination wedding for us, not for anyone else that was there. But so doing freelance work, I had my full-time job. And, there were a few months where it's like, I'm going to have no life, and that's okay, because I know what I want when I do go full-time freelance. So there was this period where it's like, okay, it's going to be a lot of hustle and hard work, but it'll pay off. And so, when I finally did, leave the full-time job, and it was full-time freelance at that point, I always joke, I remember we landed in Germany on like a Sunday. My husband went off to work that Monday, and I actually had a freelance project that Monday too. I wanted some level of consistency of, okay, yes, I'm moving, but I'm going to be in a hotel. And what else do I have to do besides fight jet lag? Let's just keep this going. And so that really helped too, I think, to have that flexibility with clients that, hey, like this is not going to be an interruption to you. Now, I mean, on the backside, when I moved back, I was smart enough to take a week or so off and not just be like, I'm going to keep working. But there was I think I was in that mindset still of, oh my God, is this going to work? So I need to do everything I can to make sure it works. But yeah, so I think one of the major adjustments for me was the time zone as well. All my clients knew I was in Germany. I wanted to be very, very transparent. I actually had a former, someone I went to college with, who had gone to Germany and didn't tell her clients. And yeah, it just doesn't necessarily work out that well once they find, I don't think they were mad, but it's like, oh, why wouldn't you let us know? And so they were all, everyone didn't care as long as I was getting the work done, which was nice. And so the first, I would say year, it was like, okay, I'm making a living and it's a good living. It wasn't what my full-time job was necessarily, but I expected that to some extent, in that you can only do so much when you're working full-time and freelancing. You can't work full-time freelance and have a full-time job. I think you would just break and burn out, and it would be awful. So when I had more time, it was continuing to pitch and prospect and let people know, and continuously reminding people, hey, I'm available for work. Hey, I'm available for work. And sending out those pitches. And so by the second year, I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. Like, this is this is happening, and it's actually, now I have too much work and who's my backup? Who can I get to kind of come in here and help me out? And setting boundaries, I think, was a huge thing, which I know every freelancer, that's something we all need to do anyway. It got to the point after, I would say, year 2.5 years in, where I was like, okay, I can't take meetings after 9 p.m. my time, which is 3 p.m. on the East Coast, which I feel like 3 p.m. on the East Coast, 3, 4, 5 p.m., no one's really, doing anything after that meeting. So I think it worked out for everyone involved that, okay, let's do meetings early in the morning, and then I can execute on that either throughout the rest of that day, or kind of working in my favor, wake up at 9 a.m. No one's on for the next 6 hours, getting so much done because there's no emails popping up, there's no distractions, or being able to travel in that time and say, cool, I get to spend all day out on the town doing whatever it is, going for a hike, or, wherever I was at the time. And then coming back by 3, 4, 5 p.m. and working in the nighttime. So it's a really cool option to have. And I feel really lucky that, freelancing gives you that flexibility. And you can kind of, obviously set your schedule how you want to some extent, but kind of work the time zones in your favor of, okay, I want to travel and work. All right, let's go somewhere where I can be online when my clients need me and have that overlap as needed, but also spend my day, sitting by the pool or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And I know you've done it before too. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
I was just thinking, oh, I miss having American clients and working in the European time zone,
yeah,
or in time zones. It's so nice. There's nobody
yeah,
who needs you when you're on at your freshest in the morning.
yep.
And then later on, it's like, all right, good, sure, absolutely.
I think that was the biggest adjustment coming back, was like, oh no, now I'm in, all 8 hours of my day are overlapping with people and emails going, and
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so you mentioned time zones and you mentioned boundaries. We have, as you know, we have students from all over the
yeah,
world working with clients from all over the world.
yeah,
As you said, you lived overseas for 4 years. I have had the opportunity to travel for, a good couple of months at a time over the past several years. What other tips would you give to people who either want to live permanently a fair distance from where they're mostly looking for clients, or who already do live a fair distance from where they're looking for clients, or for once all of this chaos is over and we can all travel regularly again, people who are like, hey, if copywriting is that flexible, maybe I do want to go live overseas for a couple years, but still, or a couple months, and still have clients in my country of origin.
yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing, obviously visa restrictions. I was lucky to have a visa due to my husband's job, which allowed me to stay there for much longer than I would have otherwise. Hire a tax person that, if you're going to be there for a really long time, that knows both countries you're working in, what you need to do. And even if you don't need to, file in both places, maybe there's some benefit to you monetarily. There's all kinds of credits and deductions and whatnot. I'm by no means an expert, but hire a tax person. What else? Yeah, I think, having that overlap with clients is so important. I think sometimes people think, freelance, I can just work when I want and it doesn't matter when the clients are on or when I'm on. And to some extent that is true, but it's always helpful to have at least a couple of hours where that they're online and you're online, and if needed, that you can communicate. And I think communication just is really the biggest thing no matter what, but particularly when you're working on a different schedule. So making sure you're communicating deadlines that I never used my own time zone when I was quoting meetings or whatever it was, deadlines. It was always, here's the date in your time zone, in your day, so if it was end of day, their time on a Thursday, that might have bought me a few hours the next day. My time is needed. So it's really important that you're making it clear to your clients when you're going to do things, and when you say you're going to do them, obviously you do them like with any other deadline, but making sure they're clear on the date and time in wherever they are. And then on your own end, I set up my Google Calendar so that it had side by side. I had East Coast time zone in the US, and then I had the time zone in Germany. And so I could see on my calendar, Google lets you have dueling. So, okay, it's this time for me and it's this time for them. And that was so helpful.
I know that. That's really cool.
Yeah. Fun fact. I don't know how many, you might be able to add a third. I don't know. That would be a little too much for me, I think, to have like West Coast, East Coast.
Honestly, when I go home and visit my parents in the central time zone, if I have to book things out and I'm talking to people in any other than the central time zone, I'm totally thrown. I've had so many podcast interviews that I scheduled while I was in central time zone and then come back to East Coast. It's an hour difference.
Yep.
I'm late or I'm earlier. It's absurd.
Yeah. So make sure when you're setting with the Google Calendar, you can select which time zone it's in. And
that is very good to know. I had no idea.
Yeah. So that when it automatically does it, when you go somewhere else, you're not like, it's all, thrown off.
Yes. That is the thing that bothers me about calendars, is that they will change to
whatever
you're in, whether or not you want them to.
Right.
If I'm home visiting my parents, I'm booking stuff on East Coast time, especially stuff for the future.
Yeah.
So little tip there, everybody. Keep an eye on what your calendars are doing when you're moving around if you're going for Thanksgiving or for the holidays at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So you also, in addition to being a fantastic copywriter, I basically stole you back again, if you will, and brought you onto the Filthy Rich Writer team. Was it beginning of last year, or was that even the year before?
What year are we in? I had 2020 it's a blur. It's a blur.
I don't know. I think it's 10 years, 15.
Fall of 2019, I believe, was when.
Oh, so it's been
over a year. Yeah.
Anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah.
So exciting. I didn't get you anything. Okay. I will. So as I was, we have been building the business and building the course and bringing new students in, and they're seeing big successes, and that's awesome. But in fall of 2019, I started to go, okay, I need some help with this. Like I need more presence in the Facebook group. I need someone to bounce ideas off of. And obviously since then we've also built the team a little bit more as well. But you were the first person I thought of. I was like, oh, if I could get anybody to help me out, it would be Kate. And so I called you up and you were excited about it. Thank goodness. And you have been just an amazing addition to the team. And so you are in the Facebook group, but you're also, helping me and plan our marketing and plan events. We do events throughout the year, and we will continue to do events throughout the year for our students. And you're also our head coach. So you will do one-on-one coaching sessions for people who want to just a little extra help, a little personal help beyond, the coaching calls and our Facebook lives and all that kind of thing. Now you have, and the cool thing too is that, not the cool thing, the expected thing is that our students give you fantastic feedback. They're like, oh my God, it was the best coaching session. I'm so glad I did it. But having worked with the students in the group and having worked with students one-on-one, what's a good way to put this? What are some of the most common things you see that are holding people back, or people are not giving themselves enough credit for, or things that are keeping them from breaking through?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it can be one of two things. I think sometimes people get hung up on the early modules, which love people that do the course in order and, do those foundational modules. They're so important, but they are packed with a lot of new information. I think it's that, we talk about it a lot as adults, we don't often learn new things. And so when we do, it's that we come up against the wall. What are you going to do? And I think for a lot of people, it's freak out. And I get it. I do the same thing in other areas where, you have to kind of pause and figure it out. But I think moving past that and to say, okay, I don't understand everything yet. I maybe grasp a few things, but I'm going to keep moving forward so that I can apply it and actually practice writing copy. And then I think that's when things start to click, is when you actually practice. And when you look at copy out in the world, you're evaluating it, not just, oh, this stinks, but here's why it isn't working. And here's what I could do to make it better. If I was writing this, here's what I would do. And actually doing that on paper, not just in your head and not just, thinking about it, but really putting pen to paper, or, opening up a Word doc or Google Doc and doing it I feel like I'm back in time. A pen and quill. But doing it on your computer or tablet, whatever you're using, digitally, to actually write copy. And then I think the other thing is for folks, once they have practiced a lot, knowing that it's okay to start pitching, and that the best way to get more practice and to really understand all the nuances is to work with a client. Because I think we see it a lot where everyone has so many questions about the smallest detail of, if this happens, is this going to happen? And does this happen? It's like, whoa, cross that bridge when you have to. But the best way to kind of answer those questions for yourself is to be in a situation where you're working with a client and see what that client says. I mean, we can't possibly include everything in the course of what a client could say, because, to this day, I work with clients and it's still things that, I wouldn't be able to plan for. And so the planning, I think, comes in with really, having gone through the foundations and practiced, and you've done your due diligence. And so having the confidence at that point to say, or not even the confidence, but the knowledge, kind of shifting, turning off your brain, the part of your brain that's saying you can't do it, and saying, nope, getting that logic back in, versus the parts of our brain that are illogical and telling us that we can't do something or we shouldn't do something, and knowing, nope, I've done all the steps, and now here I am. It's time to jump off the deep end and go. And knowing that, the group's there for you when you have to face a question where you're like, I don't know. The group's there, and you will get great feedback from not just me, but all of the students in the group have some great advice. So
yeah, it's it's so funny because it happens so often. We watch the progression of how people are growing in the group, and we get we see people who are like, oh, I'm afraid to pitch, I can't do it, and then a week later it's, I saw my first pitch, and then like 2 days later, like, oh my god, I got a client call. And it's just like,
yeah,
this steady growth, and every time it's a little bit further outside of your comfort zone, and that maybe that next step is like, oh, we're gonna have to do this, but then all the steps before that get so much easier. Once you've pitched once, then it's like, oh, well, that wasn't so bad. I thought it was gonna be terrible. I thought people were gonna email me back and say, never email me again, you're a horrible person. But of course that doesn't happen, especially the way we teach pitching, which is very much like, hey, I love what you do, I have a great idea, let me know if you'd like to get in touch about it, which obviously gets so much of a better reception from people than hey, I'm a copywriter, why don't you buy my services?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it is it's really fun to see the progression in the Facebook group. Yeah,
it really is. And I mean, I get it too. I think we all want to put our best foot forward, but at a certain point, like, there's no perfect. The learning is going to happen when you're in those real situations with clients. And there's no substitute for it at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And nobody starts out adept at this either, you know?
Yeah.
When I think back to my first clients 15 going on 20 years ago, and I was like, sure, I can do that for you. I don't know how to do this, but yeah, I can do that, you know? And my first prospecting was literally printing up postcards that I sent out. I mean, it wasn't like pre-internet, but it was kind of close to pre-internet. And I'm packing up my place, and my mom actually printed up T-shirts with, you know, Nicki business writing and all that kind of stuff. The problem is, which is like so sweet, I love that. My mom will still wear like some of them to bed. She printed up a bunch of them, and they have my current telephone number on them. I can't give them away because then there are going to be strangers walking around with my name and my phone number on the T-shirt. So basically, I keep them like tucked back in a closet until they disintegrate, I guess.
I would love one, please.
I know, right? It's a collector's item nowadays. I suppose I probably have to like cut them up into rags or something.
There you go. Yeah.
But yeah, it's so, you know, when you first, my first steps when I was getting started as a copywriter, because I was figuring it out on my own, was like, I need a desk. Ooh, I need a landline. Like, I think I probably used that landline twice, but I had a phone. I bought myself a phone, bought myself a desk. Yeah, it's so funny. The things that we think are so important at the time, and I have this client call, it's going to be, you know, and you get on the phone and you're talking with a person, you know, yeah. And if you don't know the answer to the question, you say, that is a really great question. Let me look into that and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's knowing that you don't have to do everything on, you know, you can follow up. You don't have to quote prices, as we always say, you know, I would never do that.
Yeah, way too much pressure. Yeah.
I'm not the type of person, I don't do well in an impromptu brainstorm. So even knowing to say on a client call, like, hey, yeah, you know, sometimes clients start to riff off ideas and you're like, okay. Like, thank you. I will take that and I will go back and come prepared with ideas next time. And if at that point you want to chat, then I'll be prepared to do so. But yeah, the impromptu brainstorm, I'm like, no. I know.
I can't speak copy. I can type it. I can write it. But I can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Come up with it extemporaneously and speak it out, which, as our students know, I think every single coaching call, I'm going, not these exact words. Do not use these exact words. This is not the copy you should be using, but something like ba 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 ba. Yeah. So, aside from the supreme joy of getting the chance to work with me again, what is your favorite thing about the Filthy Rich Writer community?
Ooh, I think that the community, in and of itself is just so positive and supportive. And I'm genuinely amazed every day at how much work and just love, I know that's a weird word to say, but they pouring love into that group to each other, to give feedback, taking the steps that they know they need to take, and just seeing, you know, I feel like I got lucky in the sense that I kind of fell into copywriting, if you will, in some ways, which isn't to say I worked my butt off with the freelance stuff and whatnot. But to see people who are literally quitting jobs unrelated to anything and doing this and then making it work and making it, like, having great success at it, just is genuinely inspirational. And I mean, we talk about all the time, there's some days where it's just like genuine tears in my eyes of like, it's just so beautiful to see people finding success for themselves and enjoying what they do, but also giving back to others that were once in their shoes. You know, I think that's the interesting thing about the communities. There are people at different stages. You know, there are people that joined today. There are people that joined a year or two ago. Of course, there are people that you're like, oh, I wonder what happened to them. And then they pop back in and they say, oh, I'm full-time copywriter here. And they don't have time as much to be in the group, which totally get it. But it's just fun to see that in the different stages. And like you said, you literally watch people go from knowing nothing to having careers that are super, super successful. So yeah, I just feel lucky to be part of it in the smallest way. Yeah, it brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. We are so fortunate to have the students that we have, and that they come in with these positive attitudes, and that, yeah, when, I mean, everybody has off days, right? With anything that you do for a living, there are days when you go, oh, I don't know if I could do this, or oh, I'm feeling so unsure. And so if someone shares something like that in the group, like dozens of people chime in to say, you can do this, you got this, or I was feeling like this last
Yeah.
week and then I landed a client. Or, and even when our students share their wins, which they do, and so often it's so cool, often too, they'll share their wins and say, hey, I just want to share that this is what happened for me, and this, and so if anybody out there is feeling like you can't do this, you can't, like, so
Yep.
it's not even just about them and taking pride in their wins, which they absolutely should do, but they're also saying, hey, look, I did this and you can too. It's such, I can't even express how fortunate I feel. And I don't, it's blessed to that our community is full of such hardworking, but also supportive and friendly people. Yeah, it's
There's a lot.
amazing. So much better than I could have even hoped when I started this business so many years ago.
Absolutely. And I think it's, I mean, the other thing that I know we tell people to give feedback, and I feel like the reason we say that is because it does help you grow. And I've noticed that even for me, selfishly, giving feedback, I've learned to try to give it better or reword it, or putting some, or trying to articulate something that I'm like, oh, how do I say why this needs to maybe be changed slightly or fixed? And giving me the skill to do that, because then, you know, as our students practice that and get good at articulating why copy works or why it doesn't work, that's so helpful for when you're with a client and they ask you why you made a choice, or if they push back on something and you can say, well, here's why I did that, and here's why I think it's really effective for your brand, your audience, or whatever. It's such good practice. And so I know I've noticed it for myself, like, oh, okay, I can actually, from a year ago when I started, you know, giving feedback, which hopefully, you know, it was still good back then, but I think it's it's definitely gotten better in how I'm able to articulate things.
Yeah, well, and it's a good point. You know, your growth as a copywriter never stops. You know,
Yeah,
there
never
are
know.
always ways to improve, and there are always new things to learn, which is great. And, you know, even just not even in terms of copywriting, but in terms of what industries are doing, in terms of what's happening with marketing and ideas for new things you could do. And there's just always so much more to learn. And you're right, the asking for feedback in the group is great, and we definitely want our students to continue to do that. But at the same time, we also want our students to be giving feedback because you learn so much from giving that feedback. And as we were saying, our group is so nice that, and we will keep it so nice. So if anybody pushes, you're out. But so even the feedback that people are giving, it's, hey, I really like this. I'm wondering if maybe you could change this for this reason. And we learn so much. We all learn so much from giving feedback to other people.
Yeah, and being able to take that feedback and knowing how to integrate it all, I think, is another skill, which is really, really helpful, because you're always going to get, you know, I always get clients where I have to kind of push it back on them to say, okay, it sounds like, you know, there's 5 stakeholders and all 5 of you have different thoughts on how you want to move forward. Here's my recommendation, and take that for what it is, and please let me know, you know, how you want to proceed. And so that's, I think, you know, something that's nice when you get 5 different people saying 5 different things. You know, some of them might be, you're like, yeah, okay, I see that. And some of them you might say, okay, like maybe, but maybe,
Yeah.
maybe not. Here's why I did that. And getting good at then on your own copy, knowing how to kind of, I don't want to say fight back feedback, but
weigh it all.
weigh it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and client management, we'll have to do a whole other podcast episode,
Yeah.
the whole concept of managing your clients, teaching your clients how to work with you effectively.
Yeah, which the time zone thing, I know that sounded easy of like, no meetings after 3 p.m. That was an ongoing thing for 4 years to remind people that I was in Germany. Because clients forget, you think, oh, I told them. That's why you remind people. That's why you follow up on pitches. That's why we only have so much space in our brains, and it's the same with our clients too.
They forget, or they try to push a little bit. Like, I know
Yep.
I said not after 3, but like just this one time, could it be 30? Yeah.
Which that happened. There were times at 11 p.m. and, my husband's like, why are you awake? Well, I'm still working.
Talking copy. Yeah. Boundaries. We're doing boundaries episode 2.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we're all kind of perpetually working on. You and I have said that our default answer when a client comes to us with like, hey, can you do this project? Can you do this project in this timeline? We're like, yes.
Yep.
Yes to that. Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll add that to the list. Guys, we have so many episodes coming up. There's so much to cover. So if you haven't yet, subscribe. But yeah, this has been super interesting, and I think probably very helpful for students new and old. And I mean, you're on every episode anyway, but we'll come back and do a Kate-centered one again. Is there anything else before we wrap up that you want to share, or anything you want to make sure that people know? Or
good question. I would just say, talking about boundaries and saying yes, I feel like that was my default when I started, and I don't regret it because I got to learn so much. Of course, now it's learning how to say no. But I do think, when you're starting out, to take as many opportunities as you can take, to try working in as many different ways as you can. I think a lot of us have that dream of, I want to be a full-time freelance copywriter. I want to be able to work wherever I am. And yes, it's fantastic, but there are those, for me, it's, I have a husband, so I'm kind of to some extent tied to his schedule too. If he's working 9 to 5, it doesn't really make sense for me to work from 5 to 9 on the opposite end, second shift. But I think it's, if you can go contract, if you can go on staff, if you can work at an agency, whatever kind of opportunities, and to try different ones and not be married to just like niching. Like there's no reason to pick a niche when you haven't experienced all of the possibilities yet, and you don't know what you might be missing out on, what you might like. So there's so many great opportunities on staff and in agencies, and with great people that can build your network, that can help you when you launch your freelance career, or and that's the beauty. I know we've talked about it before, but you don't have to do something for 5 years or 10 years. You can say, I'm going to freelance for a year, and then maybe I'll take a contract for 3 months and go back to freelancing, and then maybe I'll take a job for a couple of years, and then maybe I'll go back to freelance. You're not stuck in one thing, but to try it out and really find out what you like is really, really, really helpful.
Yeah. Copywriting is flexible, so take advantage of that flexibility. Enjoy it.
And depending what industry you come from, I mean, there's some fun offices in the creative field. It's not like, I don't know, it's not like necessarily the financial industry where you're wearing a 3-piece suit every day. There's so much. So explore it all, take advantage of all of it, the opportunities you're afforded, and yeah.
Awesome. That's great advice. Well, thank you for joining us in this very special Meet Kate episode. But I will see you back again for the next episode, and we hope we will see, or you will hear, depending on how you're watching it, YouTube or podcast. We'll hope to get you back for the next episode as well. So thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching. Make sure you don't miss any tips, tools, or tactics for copywriters by clicking subscribe right now. And of course, you can always find us over at filthyricwriter.com. We'll see you next time.